Hi guys, I'm here in beautiful Charlotte, North Carolina, and Kenneth is in Phoenix, manning the fort and holding everything down. So thank you so much for being here today, and thank you, Kenneth.
Oh yeah, it's my pleasure.
I know you had something you wanted to start off with
Yes,
today.
there was a great question that was actually asked last week that I wanted to answer since it wasn't able to be gotten to, but it was from Ernest DeBella, and he had said started off with rock and roll hoochie coo. So I know we love that love that one. It says, what does gap down mean, as in Microsoft gapped down? And what does it mean when they say 4,000 units of silver contracts were stopped by Bank of XYZ yesterday? And I wanted to just go into both those questions because I think they're important for people to know.
I
Um,
agree. Do you want to start?
yeah, absolutely.
Okay, go ahead.
So for gapping down, in trading, a gap down occurs when a stock or asset opens for trading at a significantly lower price than its previous day's closing price. So let's say Microsoft closes at $400 on Tuesday at 4 p.m. And so after the market closes, typically retail traders, they don't have access to trading. So if they released a terrible revenue report or some kind of event happens overnight, when that market officially opens on Wednesday morning at 9:30, let's say the stock price opens at $370. It's not that it traded at 399, then 390, then 380. It's literally like it just teleported or gapped down to 370. So they're basically sudden, instantaneous repricings of an asset. And as I said, for retail investors, they can be potentially dangerous because generally retail traders are locked out of after hours trading. So if a retail investor had a stop loss set at 390 to protect their capital, the gap down just blows right past it. So that that order doesn't execute until 370 and it locks in just a much heavier loss than they maybe anticipated. And it shows that in volatile markets, digital liquidity can really evaporate instantly overnight. Um, so that's I don't for a gap down. I don't know if you have any thoughts on.
Well, I think you did a great job, Kenneth, and I would also say and add to
I think
it
we have a
that at
little bit of
some point
audio
all gaps
around.
get filled. So when it gapped down and then let's say it started to rise back up, either way, it's going to go into your credit that you pointed out. It didn't go from 400 to 399 to 398, et cetera, et cetera. So you just don't be fooled when it goes to fill that gap. If it is a gap down, yeah, the price can go up to fill that gap before it then makes new lows, and vice versa. If it gapped up, it can drop. The price can drop down and then move back up. So yeah, I
Yeah.
think you explained that quite well.
Perfect. Um, and so yeah, just as a recap, because I think there may have been a little audio glitch there. But yeah, that's I explained it in good terms, so that's the important thing. And then for stopping a contract, so for example, 4,000 silver contracts were stopped by Bank XYZ. Just regarding the commodities futures market, like the COMEX or the LBMA, it's a really critical radar metric for identifying when institutional money is backing hard assets. Um, I think that we can safely say that 99.99% of the stock market is just paper trading. So for contracts, investors and banks are basically betting on the future price of silver, and at the end of the week or the month, they just settle the difference in fiat. They never actually touch the metal. But when an institution stops a contract, or it's called stopping a delivery notice, it means that they're not wanting to settle in cash, and they're initiating the nature of their contract to demand a warehouse receipt. So if Bank XYZ stopped 4,000 silver contracts yesterday, it means that they were standing for delivery, and they wired the full fiat cash amount to their clearinghouse and said, okay, we want the transferring of the warehouse receipts for that silver into our possession. So the thing is, like, one standard COMEX silver contract is 5,000 physical ounces. So stopping 4,000 contracts would mean that Bank XYZ just took delivery of a receipt with the value of 20 million ounces of silver. From there, Bank XYZ can try to take possession of the silver, but as of February of 2026, the COMEX and the LBMA have put in new restrictions where they're actually allowed to refuse physical delivery if you're not a direct user of silver. So that is something that, we may want to be on the lookout for when these rules change. Or they can use the value of that warehouse receipt to settle other institutional futures contracts behind the scenes. So in essence, they're performing an opaque asset swap. They're trading more paper silver than there ever was or ever will be of physical silver, even though the contract is supposedly backed by silver. And this really only works because most traders never stand for delivery, right? They just roll their positions or settle in fiat cash before that contract expires. But that's what stopping the contract means in a way that I guess kind of shows how the entire system kind of relies on everybody buying into, hey, don't ever take physical possession, right?
Yeah, isn't that the fractional reserve system in general?
Right.
I mean, okay, so you have all of these numbers that show up on your bank account, but what happens if people actually go to the bank to take out the money? It's not there.
Right.
Right? Yeah. So, yeah, it's a fractional reserve system, and it was designed specifically back in the 70s to keep people away, to create an artificial market. This is really important to understand because this is the part that's falling apart right now, to your point, where they stopped out these contracts because they cannot make delivery of all those contracts. Right. So this is really a full circle moment that we've been talking about as well, that will show ultimately that the emperor has no clothes.
Yeah, exactly. Right? It's, as you said, it's a Ponzi scheme from the way fiat works to the way the markets are set up under that fiat system. It just demands that there's confidence in the con game.
And there always has to be new money coming in. So where you were referring to the standard way, the standard contract of silver being at 5,000 ounces, they've broken, and the COMEX exchange has broken everything down into 1 ounce parcels as well for gold, because they need to, now that the big money's made, they need to democratize the losses, right? So they definitely silo the gains to those that are chosen to win, but then they democratize the losses to the public. It's really pretty interesting.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
But not okay.
Yeah. And you're right. It's important for people to understand this, because this is what is going behind the price movement, that spot contract price. It gets determined in part by these futures trades and these contracts that they're trading. And I think, to your point too, when we talked about it the last 2 weeks, understanding the spot contract price and why it goes up and down is fundamental to knowing this is not the true value of these metals. This is just a trading value, the fundamental value is much, much different and much, much higher because of where we're at in the currency's life cycle. It's starting to play out. Like you said, it's coming full circle.
That's the part that's really exciting to me. I can't tell you how long it's going to take until we come to the other side of this, but I love the fact that actually valuations now matter again, and having the real thing now matters again. So it's really important for people to understand your generation, other generations after mine, were really taught to accumulate experiences. And experiences are great. You want to have those experiences, but you need real hard assets as well. Because when you get into trouble and you need savings, those experiences don't give you the savings. The real hard assets, the sound money, actually gives you the savings. And I can speak from personal experience. When I was a newly divorced mom and I had to take care of my babies, yeah, I was very happy that I had some real physical assets to help us get through that block of time. It's
Yeah.
important.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, with that being said, I mean, we can bring up the other questions that were being asked, if that's
Okay.
okay with you.
Yeah, please, let's rock and roll.
All right. So we have Turtles Today saying, "Hi, question. Despite having gold revaluation accounts, what happens to gold and silver if the government uses land or crypto for the revaluation, for example?"
Well, actually, that's a good question. And of course, anything can happen because I can't guarantee it. But many other things, including rye, including land, including cows, including stones, including the list is quite long, where governments have made the attempt to revalue their currency against those other assets. Only gold actually has all of the qualifications to be a sound money. The rest of them do not. And cryptos have not even been tested, though they are in the mix and the test right now. So, the reality is, what happens if they decide to try and use something else for a revaluation, like they have many times in the past? It does not work. And 100% of the time, gold is brought back into the system to regain that public confidence. They can't do it with crypto. And land, you can't, it's not divisible. You have to look at the functions of money. What are they supposed to perform? A tool of measure. You can't, how are you going to do that with a grain of land? Right? You could do that with cryptocurrencies because they are designed to mimic fiat money, just like fiat money, bills, dollar bills, etc., wherever you are in the world, was designed to mimic the qualities of sound money. So a tool of measure, land would not really qualify for that. A tool of barter, how do you barter really with either one of those things? Barter, the case for barter has not yet been met in the crypto world. They're working on it, but it's not there yet. So that's a tool of measure, a tool of barter, a short-term store of value for fair payment of labor. I don't know how you would do it with actually one or the other, because again, the volatility and the lack of divisibility in the land. And a long-term store of value, well, that's because they're destroying the currency. But again, cryptocurrencies have not yet been tested. So they're going to be tested now. They may be in the middle of this test anyway, but the jury's absolutely out on that. And land does not work for a revaluation account. It just doesn't, because it doesn't meet all the criteria to be a sound money or a good money or even a fiat money. Did you want to add to that?
Well, yeah, I think, and I'd love to kind of get your take on it as well. When we look at land and we look at crypto, the problem also is that when we try to determine that value for them, whatever the current value may be, it still goes back to being denominated in fiat. So how do you take something that's got its value derived from the debt to revalue it to pay off debt, right? It's kind of like it's a square peg in a round hole, I
Right.
guess. Whereas the whole purpose of the sound money strategy and what you've dedicated a majority of your life to researching is why was it first gold and then the fiat came from the gold? They have to go back to the genesis point in
Mhm.
order to pay off that debt because it's the only proven asset to actually have, retain, or store value for that kind of purpose, for like a financial purpose.
That's a very good point. Yeah, I agree.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, all right, great. We have here, if you could scroll down, I think we answered that one last week, actually, Tom, but a little bit further down too, we did do that one. Okay, so I think we're here. So we have Carol Catarino on Facebook saying, would you be able to write off your loss if the value of your coins drop? Some people have had coins for years, and if they are buying coins now, is it because of paper money has no value thanks to our government? Or I think it's because paper money has no value.
Mhm. So yes, just like any other investment, if you have a loss, then you can claim that loss. Absolutely.
Okay, perfect. I didn't learn something new.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm not an accountant. I am not an attorney. Double check with them. But yes, it's my understanding that if it's a loss on an investment, you can take that just like any other losses.
Perfect. And then we have Miramore that says the Clarity Act sounds like the same old shenanigans. No one's talking about gold standard. Who do we talk to? Thank you.
We talk to each other and we build that global community demanding gold back in the system. Why in the world would they ever want to give up their money monopoly? They wouldn't want to do that. We're going to have to take it back. And the way that I believe we can do it is just by converting our garbage fiat into sound money.
Right. Yeah. If we can get just 3%, right?
That's it.
3% of the global population to adopt sound money, it then brings a voice to the table. And yeah, I mean, no, would you say that nobody's talking about the gold standard, or do you think maybe it's been brought to light a little bit more recently, like in the past year or so?
Well, I would say that there's definitely a growing trend of people of all ages and the younger generations that are a lot more interested in it. But who even thinks about that? That's why we have to have these conversations and they have to go into our global and local conversations. And we have to also do that with our government officials, local officials. We have to start talking about sound money because no, who's going to bring that? Who's going to bring up the gold standard? Not a government and not a central bank, because that creates restrictions around what they can do, and they sure don't want that.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah. I would say I think it's definitely with that run up as well. Like earlier this year in the
Mhm.
metals, it brings a lot more investor attention, and I think that that's a good thing because while yes, people might worry if the price drops, it still gets more eyes on the metals and it allows us to get that message out to, again, well, why does the spot contract price do this? And what is sound money? What is a gold standard? So yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely being talked about a little bit more too.
Yeah. And yeah, the Clarity Act are the same old shenanigans. We're going to keep getting the same old shenanigans unless we do take our power back. So yes, absolutely, critically important.
Yeah. Then we have Stonewall Badal that says, hey, Zang Gang, Lynette, Kenneth, Good to see you doing the lives even while traveling.
Well, that's how big a commitment they really are to me, and to everybody at Zang International. And I really appreciate Kenneth being there because we've got a lot of big plans, and it takes a village. It takes everybody rowing in the same direction and doing what they can. So thank you for noticing. It's our pleasure.
Yes, it is. I know, but definitely, even when you were on vacation in New Zealand, you were here, you were doing the live. So, you show up at all times, Lynette, and it's very appreciated by everybody here and in the community. So,
Thank you.
of course. And then we have Ernest DeBella saying, "Rock and roll hoochie coo. Why couldn't I take gold and melt it, put into a mold to make, basically religious symbols and make it a collectible? I'm thinking in relation to prior confiscations."
You certainly can. You can
Hmm.
do that. Absolutely. You see me wear jewelry all the time. There's a reason why I do it. And it's because I want you to understand that gold and silver in any form are monetary at its base. And they're typically higher, they're in a different category. Can you hold jewelry in your IRA? No.
Right.
So it's a different category. Yep, you could do that.
Gotcha. Well, and then when it comes to, I guess, what function do you think that would serve in the overall strategy? Would that be more for
Barterable.
barterable? Because
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I guess it would be more like you can't really derive a uh, like a specific collector value from something that you melted down into jewelry, but it will have that inherent value just based on the weight of the gold, right?
Yep. Yep. You got it.
Gotcha. And then Nathan Patel 1786 says, "Do you hold platinum or palladium?"
I do have platinum because a lot of the early jewelry was made out of it. And there was certainly a time because platinum used to trade at much higher levels than the spot gold contract. So when that first flip flop, that was kind of interesting to me. But I cannot say that at this moment in time, that I'm holding any platinum or palladium as it would be, those are both industrial metals anyway. And for me, this is a monetary life cycle issue. So I stick with the silver and gold as the primary and then secondary currency metals. So I don't hold them for any other way other than if they're part of jewelry or something else that I have.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point as well. That when we're talking about a strategy, I think that you can easily go out and collect any metals. You can stack metals.
Mhm.
That's the easy part, right? Anybody will be willing to offer you to take metals, but having a strategy around what is the function of
Right.
the metal that you're holding, that's really what at Zang International. I mean, as far as I've ever seen, Lynette, I've never seen anybody else offer a strategy with their metals. And you're right. There's a difference between something that is a monetary metal and at its core foundation, gold is primarily a monetary metal, secondarily an industrial metal. Silver is got a monetary application as well, which is why it's great for your barter position. There's always going to be global users of those metals, but when it comes to platinum or palladium, those are strictly industrial metals,
Yeah.
and they derive their value on supply and demand on an economic level. During a currency reset, do you anticipate there would be a big economic demand for those kinds of things?
Yeah, and that's the point. They're more industrial metals. It's also why you see the volatility in silver, because while both gold and silver, you did this really well, but while both gold and silver are demanded on a global basis, you've got one that it has a much larger foot in the monetary world, which is gold, and that's why it's the anchor and the foundation. And you've got the silver that is more in the industrial world, so you get a whole lot more volatility. But that's also why silver is the fuse, and it has a tendency to start that run first when there's a change in the system. So you use it like a canary in the coal mine, so to speak, because you can tell something is changing. Even when you don't know what it is, just knowing that it's changing helps you get into the right position.
Wow. Yeah, I think that's actually really great. So if you can keep an eye on, that silver spot contract price, though, that typically will be an indicator of where the big changes are coming. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we just had, even though there's the pullback in here, that was speculative trading. So that wasn't any level of reflection, and the demand, the 33 users of physical gold, the 36 users of physical silver, they didn't evaporate, they didn't go away. And
Right.
they didn't create that volatility. It's the trading that creates that. And everything has been turned into a trading product.
Yeah, I know. And you said it best, just because something is overbought does not mean it's overvalued. And that's what we're seeing. Yeah, it's just
Yeah, you
it
take
had to
advantage of it.
yeah, just the buying had to cool down, and that creates a temporary drop down of that price, and then the fundamental value is so much higher than what this, manipulated contract Wall Street price is trying to claim. So
It's true. And you can't give a whole lot of guarantees, but I can give you this. At some point, all assets move to their fundamental value. I just can't tell you it'll be Tuesday morning at 8:35, but it could be.
I think it might be. I don't know. I'm gonna hold you to that one. Just kidding.
Yeah, hold me to that one.
Okay, and then we have Douglas Tavis 6436 says, "Hi Lynette, question. Texas made gold and silver legal tender.
Mhm.
It takes it out of the collectible status and therefore the collectible tax. Would that affect collectible status if it went nationwide?"
Yes, it would, and that's what we're working on. Because if we can get enough states to adopt it, look, there's no bill that's perfect, but it is a start. And if we can get enough states to adopt gold and silver as legal tender, we can put pressure on the federal government. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah,
So yes, that would be awesome.
absolutely. Then Renee Dubois says, "Hi, would there be an upside to having a separate spot price for paper and physical metals?"
Well, there would be an upside to the physical realm, but it would really also make it very obvious to everybody that the emperor is not wearing any clothes. So, yes, it would be, because you would have real pricing, supply and demand. But we're going there anyway. I don't know how much longer it's going to take, but we're already on that path.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that's again part of how they keep the confidence con game going is it's just opaque. You can't really see what that spot contract price is determining. Again, there's more contracts out there than ever can and ever will exist of the physical. So at this point they can't have a separate, spot price for either, because then everyone would just see, oh, okay, well, the charade is over, and they need to
Right,
have that fall apart in their terms on their timing. So
right, right.
and then we have Capri MD says, "Hi to Lynette and Kenneth. Paint a picture of daily life for the common person after a run on a bank. How will banking change direct deposit payments, etc.? Ken, I've been busy with patients. Thank you, Patrick."
Okay. So paint a picture of daily. I mean, the common person, we don't have to look very far. You can look at what happened in Greece when they shut their banks. You have a very limited amount of cash that you'd be able to take out on a daily basis. But, direct deposits, direct payments, those would still go through because they'd be part of the banking sector. And as long as the banks did not do a full bail in, which means take everything that you have in what you perceive of as your accounts, then you would still have access to a certain amount, a small amount to take out daily cash, but mostly anything that would flow through your bank account. In other words, direct deposits, direct withdrawals, that would stay pretty normal, but it's would not be great for the normal person because of you're not going to ever be able to take out as much money as you would need to meet your living expenses. And there is no change, by the way. There is no change. So if you go in and you buy something, even if you use a piece of silver to get it, something like that, just be prepared. They may want to give you a Tootsie Pop as change.
Mm, yeah, yeah, that's very true. And I think that also kind of brings in to your point about like the bail-ins and what how the Dodd-Frank Act really set up this hierarchy to do the offloading of risk from the institutions onto us, who
Yep.
is really an investor in the bank. When you think about it, our deposits, as you said, it's not ours legally in that hierarchy. We are lending it to the institution,
Yep.
so we're an investor in that institution, and the risk always gets offloaded from those who write the rules and those who influence those who write the rules down onto the users of the monetary system. And what do you think with the Dodd-Frank Act being in effect here in the United States? What would a wide bank run on, like a systemic contagion event really kind of look like? How fast do you think that would play out?
Oh, well, we've seen it not that far, so less than 24 hours, it can play out just like that. Because remember, too, yes, things move very rapidly these days with all that high level of technology. So if they don't get a handle, meaning the central banks don't get a handle on it, we saw 2020, they all just paraded out saying, "Do you don't have to worry about it. We can just print as much money as you guys want. So yeah, go ahead, go ahead." And that was really the central bankers' attempt, which it was successful this time, to get in front of a bank run because the wealth isn't there, the money isn't there. And so I think we're seeing kind of a modern day bank run right now. We're seeing it in the private equity where people are saying, "I want my money back," and they're going, "Well, you can have 5% of it."
Per quarter.
That's it. So that's what it looks
Yeah.
like. You lose all access to your wealth other than a minimum amount. And who do you call? There's no one to call. There's no one to who you to complain to. I mean, it won't matter. That's why it is so important to build your local community. Go to a farmer's market, go to a community garden, get to know the people that grow your food. But it's food, water, energy, security, barterability, wealth preservation, community, and shelter. You've got to get that done.
Yeah.
You've got to be as secure and independent and self-sufficient, but do it inside a community because there's strength in numbers.
Very much. And I think it speaks back to what we had talked about a few months ago with, yeah, who are you going to call? Because I don't think people, they don't, who reads the whole terms and conditions of when they sign up for these accounts, but that's that capital incarceration. It's not yours, legally speaking, and you don't have the right to demand anything out of the system. The system can take, but when it's time to ask for it back, there's no
Mm-mm.
guarantees.
No, based on the claims paying ability. We don't realize it. Oh, but there's a guarantee. Yeah, no.
All right. And then Budman7388 says, "Hi, Lynette. What part of North Carolina are you visiting?"
I am in Charlotte, actually, and I'm doing the Plutus event on, well, it starts tomorrow night. So, and then runs all through Friday, Thursday and Friday.
Oh, going to be fun time, right? A lot of stuff to do out there with those people.
Yep.
It's great. And then Deb Warner 2978 says, the 3% of the population, how do you know when you have the 3%?
That is such a good question. It's actually a question I've been asking myself too. It's like, okay, how do we track this? I don't know. I don't have a good answer for that one. Sorry, Deb. But the more we talk about it and the more people with the more dime cards we give out and the more people that become aware of it, we'll reach a tipping point. And I think once I hear, and it's not us pushing the dime cards, but it's others out there talking about them and showing up and really getting the views and the likes, and it's going to these different places and being able to use gold for down payments, being able to give somebody a choice between a chocolate bar and an ounce of silver and have them realizing that the silver is way better to have than the chocolate bar. So that's how we're going to know when we see it, and it's not just us talking about it, it's out there talking about us and we hear it. That's how we'll know.
Yeah,
it's a great question because I've asked myself that too.
Yeah, and as a side note on that too, on all of our socials, there is a video that got posted by us at Zang International of I was able to go to a car dealership here in Arizona and give gold as a down payment for a truck. So it's possible. It's out there. I found somebody that was willing to do it, and they said, like, yeah, why wouldn't we do it? It made sense to the GM of that dealership because they understand probably the value of real sound money.
So, love that. See?
Yeah, you guys can check it out on the socials, and it was really cool, really interesting experience.
I agree. Good job.
Yeah, thank you. And then Ernest DeBella says, when talking about U.S. debt and acceleration phase, I like to use the analogy when the toilet water is flushed. The closer it gets to going down the drain, the faster it goes. Feel free to use that one, Lynette.
Thank you very much, Ernest. I just probably will because there's a lot of commonality in there too, but I won't say it.
Right. That's funny. And then we have Miramore says, okay, I'll say it. I don't know how many clients you have, but I bet they come from 50 states. What stops you from mobilizing us or helping us to mobilize? Saying we have to come together isn't enough.
That is a really good point, and I'm glad that you're going to say it. And actually, I had a meeting with C4SM just before we left, so we've got an outline of the program. And so that's what we're going to try and do is actually get us all mobilized so we can, because you're right, saying we have to come together isn't enough. We have to do it. So we had that meeting just before I left. We actually do have the date when we're going to start that mobilization on the calendar. Well, here, let me look. I'll see.
Yeah.
Gosh, I hope it works. Let's see. It's
like just so happens that you already like knew this question was going to come up, so you've already got it all the stuff.
Yep, it is actually on May 11th, which is a Monday, and it's 6:00 Eastern time. Don't hold me to that 100%, but we're going to do it. It'll be live. Daniel Diaz and I will do it, and we are going to start to mobilize. So thank you for that, because you're absolutely right. Talk is cheap. Let's make it happen.
Yeah. Well, there you go. You guys heard it here first. Breaking news. Okay, and then we have Neil Shan Dynasty. Sorry, Neil Shan Dynasty, 8882. 1824 to 1845, Russia used platinum as money in a quad metallic money experiment. Platinum has been used as money if you look outside America for your theories.
That is absolutely a good point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I would wonder if that maybe parallels to it being like an experiment because it didn't run very long, right? Less than 20 years, kind of mirroring this cryptocurrency thing that we have going on here being an experiment.
Well, potentially, except platinum is physical, and
Right.
so it has a level of functionality. Um, so yeah, I mean, they've tried lots of things. They've tried cows. They've tried, I mean, in Germany, instead of when they went through their hyperinflation, they wanted to use rye because rye is a very important product for them to make bread and what have you, but it has a shelf life. I mean, they've tried a lot of different things, these huge, ginormous lapstones, but remember, it has to be divisible, it has to be fungible, it has to be, and platinum could, I'm not really sure, I'd have to look and see if platinum is destructible. I mean, I think you can destroy it, and that's one of the reasons that silver is not a primary currency metal, but gold is, because gold is indestructible, which means that it works as a tool of measure because we can account for pretty much all of the gold that's ever been pulled out of the ground, which we can't really say that for anything else. So I'd have to double check. I'm not going to sit here and say that absolutely platinum is not indestructible, but I'm pretty sure it's not. And so that's why it might not work. And yes, okay, great that it tried. And you're right, because we have to look outside of ourselves to learn even more and come together and make all of these strategies better and better as we're helping each other through this, because we're all going through this together. Nobody's going to be immune. Nobody.
Right. Yeah. And even to your point, like we could talk about Zimbabwe, and even just because you're putting the word gold in how you're valuing your currency, it's only pegged to the gold. It's not backed by the gold. And so
Right.
there's plenty of different experiments we could say that they've tried to still allow for fiscal irresponsibility while still making the public think, well, okay, it's backed by this hard asset, so it must be safer, which might not always be the case, right? As again, we can see Russia doesn't still have their currency backed by platinum, and there must be a reason why, right?
It's a good point.
Yeah. And then, so Bobcat Pro 5 says, hi, Lynette, first time on your live stream.
Thank
Basic,
you.
basic question. In your opinion, how much 90% should a person hold, in your opinion, for a minimal amount?
Well, really, it's based on your standard of living, and generally speaking, because the way that we determine it, we have a whole list. And what do you need barterable silver for, and what are you going to use barterable gold for? So it's kind of hard to get. There's no blanket answer. And in my opinion, I've gone out with my barterable personally. This is what I've done for myself. You've got to do what you're comfortable with. But I've got enough barterable silver and barterable gold for 10 years. This is a global issue. It's not going to get worked through just like that. And essentially, I would say don't hold me to this, because again, it depends. You're going to pay your property taxes or an ongoing, if you have a chronic illness, you're going to do that with barterable gold, but you're going to buy your strawberries and your gas and things like that with barterable silver. So maybe if you're doing 10 years for your barterable position, you might do something like 70% of that in barterable silver, 30% of that in barterable gold. But honestly, it really depends on what you're personally doing. And I'm going to hand that over to you, to Kenneth, because Kenneth is a strategy specialist on the floor, so he can address that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is the beauty of our sound money strategy at Zang International, is it is custom to each person because everybody has a different standard of living, everybody has different outgoing expenses, everybody has different debt levels, and we look at it from a bird's eye view, kind of 30,000 feet up perspective when we talk about how our metal is going to fit into your goals. and how can we make our strategy benefit you the most, work for you. And as a minimum, I mean, yeah, it's really as simple as saying, well, how often do you want to have food on your table, right? That's the minimum. That should be the standard of the baseline. You want to make sure you have food, water, energy, security, barterability, wealth preservation, community, and shelter. And that is part of that barter position. It really does fit all in. The whole mantra can fit just into that. So even your 90%, constitutional silver, you've got to look at it as, you could always give us a call. We'll go over that with you. Any strategy specialist can ask the quick questions to know, well, this is how much at a minimum. But you also have to ask yourself, what level of preparedness do you want to have for this reset when this begins to happen?
Right. Or when it becomes obvious because it's already begun to happen.
Right.
When you stop and think about it, inflation, even at 2%, is still resetting the currency. It's just doing it slowly enough that you don't notice. It's that frog in the pot of water.
That is very true. So when it becomes, very apparent, and then that's when the awareness phase is over and the panic phase sets in, and that's
Yeah,
when you don't want to not have a strategy when that time comes.
that's right. Yep, and we're close.
Yeah,
Can't tell you when, but we're close.
perfect. And then we have Miss Sensi says, when stocks only go up, is that due to hyperinflation?
Well, in many ways, it is because people are trying to escape all of that money printing. And we've really been taught away from sound money and hard assets. So yeah, when the stock market goes up, you can see that markets go up during hyperinflationary events just because there's so much more money. And why are the markets going up when we see what's going on in the Middle East and we see what's going on in Ukraine? I mean, really, we are in World War III, and yet we've got the stock markets consistently making new highs. Why? Because they anticipate more free money. That's why. Not because they're worth any more. They were already ridiculously overvalued. And so now the market's just that much more, even ridiculously overvalued. So, but I can't say that stocks only go up due to hyperinflation. But in this environment, and as you're entering into a hyperinflationary environment, then yeah, people are trying to escape from the money that they're losing. But reality is a trillion times zero is still zero.
Yeah, that is very true. And would you say that there's a lot of institutional money based on speculation that is going into the stock market as well, that is kind of driving these higher highs, and that might be a way for perception management as well, so that the government can look at, point at the stock market and say, well, what do you mean the stock market's doing great, so everything must be fine?
A yes to a lot of those. And understand, when you're talking about the institutional money, that's the money that all these people put in from their 401ks, and it's an automatic, that they take it out of your paycheck. And then these companies have to do something with that money. So yes, that institutional money is absolutely pushing the markets up more because they can't really sit on their hands. In their contracts, they must invest this in a certain way. And we've talked about this over the years so much. It's what leads to what herding, right? We talk about hoarding, well, also herding, because all of those big tech companies, all of the money is basically going into the same place, which looks great on the way up. It looks stinky on the way down. But yeah, absolutely, it's a flow of funds that's pushing the markets as that money. And when I say flow of funds, I'm talking about the money sloshing from here to here to here to here to here to here in a trade, just a big trade.
Yeah. Agreed. And then Douglas Tavis 6436 says, Lynette, I'm concerned about the collectible status affecting pre-33 gold. That was the second part of my earlier question.
Oh.
Would pre-33s lose their protected status? A lot of my gold is pre-33s.
And I can tell you that pretty much if it's not jewelry, all of my gold is pre-33 as well. And the answer is they can do anything they want, but it is not likely, because you've got coins in this realm that can go for the many, many, many millions of dollars. I don't know, 15, $30 million for 1 ounce of gold. So anybody that can really afford something like that is either writing the laws, like was true with Treasury Secretary Wooten, and or can influence those that are writing the laws. So while yes, they can do anything, are they likely to do it? No, they're not likely to do that, because you cannot go back prior to 1933 and create those coins again. So and I agree. And when I think about my Uncle Al and his holding at least 3,000 ounces in that way, when it was illegal to hold it any more than 5 ounces any other way. Yeah, the chances of them losing that status, no. I just, I'm not sure where we are with the whole Doom Loop series, but I definitely did bring up all the layers of extra protection of those pre-33s. Anything can happen, but it's not likely to.
Yeah. I mean, really, when we look at the legal language is of how we even got to this, this point of pre-1933 gold, it is, we really have to sit back and ask ourselves, okay, why was that exemption ever put into the language of that law in the first place?
Mm-hmm. So
And
why do you think it was?
well, it would have to be the people who write the rules or those who influence those who write the rules had something to gain by having that kind of gold in their possession. And so the question really becomes, what is the likelihood of those same people writing a rule that would potentially hurt themselves?
Right. And you're talking about the 1% that are basically ruling everything, the 99%. It's
Mhm.
like having the health coverage of the federal government versus what we can buy in the normal marketplace. There's two different things. And I don't have those other options on those other health plans.
Yeah. And also that when you said that if it was, the Doom Loop series is coming out, so that one in particular covering the layers of protection in the pre-33s is coming out on Saturday. That's the Doom Loop
Oh,
number
okay,
4.
good.
So, yeah.
Definitely, if you haven't seen this series, I think it's my best work. Really, I do. So see it, get her done.
There you go. So this Saturday, all eyes on the channel. It'll be dropping.
Okay.
And then we've got Claire Winson official says, I'm really new to the channel. Can you explain buying gold and silver when you have debt, specifically mortgage? Should I pay down the house first? How would I pay for anything with gold?
Well, you just did it with a car, but let's talk about the mortgages specifically.
Yeah.
Because the goal of the government and the strategy of the government is to repay that debt within the US dollars that have less and less and less and ultimately no value at all. And so we basically take a page out of the government's playbook, and we do know and can calculate out what the true fundamental value of an ounce of gold is right now for its most important function, which is to maintain your purchasing power. And we use that calculation to determine how many ounces of gold would actually pay off that fixed rate mortgage. So the fixed rate, that's part of the strategy. And I'll let Kenneth speak even more deeply into it. to help you understand it. Variable rate debt, bad. Fixed rate debt, not so bad. You're repaying it with dollars in this country that have no value.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great point again to the layers of our strategy. I say it all the time. It really has taken into account every possible scenario. So everybody has different things that are going on in their own personal and financial life, but the strategy is designed to look at the big picture and say, okay, where is your vulnerability and how do we address it? So if you have a mortgage, to your exact point, when they do that first overnight revaluation of gold, the goal would be we take the gold to pay off the debt that you have, like a fixed rate debt mortgage, with dollars that are rapidly losing their purchasing power. I mean, at that point, we would be in a hyperinflationary environment. So, yes, you would want to just get rid of any of that fixed rate debt, specifically because you don't want to be caught in any kind of banking restructuring. Um,
Right.
Right. When banks are going through a major financial change, like a currency reset or a liquidity crisis, they restructure their debt that they have on their books. And Lynette, when they restructure debt, is it going to be in their interest or in ours?
Well, who reads those contracts? I'm pretty
Right.
sure they're not doing it just to be nice. So, that's why you really want to be in a position to boom, pay that debt off just like that when they do those overnight resets. Then, I mean, I can't guarantee how long we're going to have, but globally on average, we should have about 9 months to execute that whole part of the strategy. So, this isn't a wham bam, thank you, ma'am, just a transaction. Good luck to you. You need to know. Our goal is to meet you where you are and help you get to where you want to be, and that's an ongoing thing. That's like a permanently ongoing experience and part of the community at Zang International.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's really what the kind of baseline is for how do you get debt free using our strategy.
Mhm.
I always say if you have the means to service your fixed rate debt, then you can just continue to service it. If you want to pay it off, you can, right? That's everybody's prerogative. But yeah, to your point, I wouldn't say it's the worst thing in the world if you have fixed rate debt, because you can pay it off later with dollars that have lost all purchasing power. So you're relinquishing that loan in one fell swoop, and you're able to, if you're thinking about, do I pay off debt or do I invest in the strategy? If gold is severely undervalued right now, you can take more of those fiat dollars that are melting away, losing their purchasing power, to get more hard physical gold in your possession. And then when that revaluation happens, you just take a fraction of that little vault you just built to relinquish that debt, and you're left with unencumbered ounces of gold to then execute other parts of the strategy. So, um,
So let's get a little more specific on
yeah,
how would I pay for anything with gold.
yeah,
You're going to have some choices, and we'll know all of the choices when we get there. One of the choices would be to reconvert it back into whatever the local currency happens to be. So if it's dollars, if it's CBDCs, if it's whatever it happens to be, you would liquidate it through us. We would convert it into that local currency. Some entities, though understanding gold, would rather take gold like you just bought a car or truck with using a down payment on gold. So,
right.
did you use that direct, or did you have to convert the gold into dollars in order to make that down payment?
No, I just handed him the gold. I said, "Here you go. Here's my salesman. Here's the gold." He brought it to his manager, and they actually gave me a receipt the next day, and the receipt said cash. So
So there you go. So to answer the last part, if it's demanded, then it will be converted into the local currency. If it's not demanded, but they'd rather have the gold, you'll pay for it direct.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's the other thing. The strategy, it works in either way, either scenario, right? If you've got to convert it into fiat, there will always be users of gold and silver out there in the world. And so you can convert it. Somebody will buy it from you, and you take whatever that means of liquidity is, whether it's digital or dollars that have lost all their purchasing power, or you can just use the actual asset itself. So you're covered on either way. And that has been our hour, Lynette. It's flown by when you're having fun.
I know it. Thank you guys so much for being here. I really, really appreciate it. You can see our commitment is to you. And I absolutely know that together we can change the world. So let's do it. And until next we meet, wherever you are in the world, please be safe out there. Bye bye.